Hello everyone, my name's Jennie Vascombs and this is Sound Orders with Azorean Maritime Heritage Society. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. Today I have two amazing guests with me. I have Louise Medeiros and Irene Medeiros. Good evening, ladies.
Good evening.
How are you doing today?
Very well. How about you?
Great, thank you. Thanks so much for joining us today to talk about the Azorean Maritime Heritage Society and the history of how women became involved with the Azorean whaleboats. Thank you so much again for taking the time. Let's start with Louise, a brief introduction about how you became part of the organization.
Well, I became part of the organization after going on a trip with my mother. It was a trip of a lifetime, the two of us going to the Azores to see where I came from and where my grandparents came from. And the trip was organized by Dr. Mary Vermette. So through that trip is how she had us become involved in the organization.
Excellent. Irene, is that how also you became involved with the organization?
Yes, but I went back a little further because I was a docent at the Whaling Museum, and Dr. Mary Vermette became a docent at the Whaling Museum also. So she started talking about this potential trip that the Whaling Museum was going to sponsor, which they had never done that before. So I thought that sounds pretty neat because my folks were from the island of Terceira. And I didn't realize it, but Mary Vermette's mother, I think, was from Terceira also. So we already had a little bond there. So she talked me into going on the trip, and I invited Louise to come. And that's how we went on that trip.
Excellent. And what year was this trip?
1997.
1997, yep.
So in 1997, the legacy of women getting involved with the Azorean whaleboats began. So let's dig a little bit into that story there. I think it gets interesting with how you both participated and you saw a whaleboat while you were on your trip at Terceira. I think you saw Bella Vista. Talk a little bit about that and how you really became interested in the whaleboats.
We were on a cruise there in the Azores, and Mary Vermette, who was our guide also, pointed out a whaleboat being built, and she explained that that was a Portuguese whaleboat, and we knew that that was different from our whaleboats because they were pretty in color, and ours were just plain. And she said, and that's Mr. Tavares, the builder, and she said, someday we're going to build 2 whaleboats in New Bedford. That was a shockaroo to me. But that was the beginning of the interest.
And as soon as we got back from the Azores, Dr. Vermette was hot on the trail to make it happen, build the boats.
She got the wood, special wood, sent from the Azores to New Bedford so they could build it right. And she got Mr. Tavares.
Three whaleboat builders from the Azores came in and built the boats.
They came to New Bedford
to
assist with building.
And they lived here. I think one of them lived at her house.
Probably, I
don't know where she put him, but she placed him in somebody's house who spoke Portuguese because they didn't speak English. And they started building the boat. And it was public, so we could watch. It was very interesting. Of course, I had never seen any boat built, but to see one with that expertise and love was very different.
Yeah, it's quite amazing to see the craftsmanship that goes into restoring and maintaining and building the Azorean whaleboats. It's quite magnificent to see. Yes. We've just recently rebuilt one here, so it was quite amazing to see. So after 97 or so, how did things start to unfold for women within the organization?
Well, the boats were launched in 2000, and the first regatta was in 2001. it was here in the United States. I had 3 gentlemen who spoke no English staying with me. I was a host family. And no women were involved, of course. Women were involved in preparing the food and
serving,
hosting.
Hosting.
Those that came here.
And it was natural. And they didn't house these people, and there were quite a few of them. They didn't house them in hotels or motels. It was in people's homes, so that they could learn our culture and we could learn their culture. It was a good idea.
A great cultural exchange.
And then the second regatta was held in the Azores. And Diane Kieltica, her daughter Kerry Kieltica, and I went to the Azores as tag-alongs. And
so at this point, just the men were
rowing and sailing.
Okay.
Yes. So we got to actually see the regatta there, and with many more boats in their inter-island races. But I was already a rower with the Buzzards Bay Rowing Club, and our men were wonderful sailors, our American team. But I really thought that my technique, not to be bragging, but I thought I was a pretty good rower, and I thought that we could do that too.
This is something women should be doing,
yes.
right? Yeah.
So we had a wonderful trip, came back, and then the meetings continued on.
At a meeting, and all of us spoke Portuguese, but Louise didn't speak Portuguese. So I said, raised my hand, and I said, I know we all speak Portuguese, but I know we all speak English also. So how about speaking English, because my daughter doesn't speak Portuguese? No problem. My daughter belongs to another rowing club, and they're very good rowers. How about if we try to include women? And I thought maybe the men wouldn't go for it, but they were wonderful. They were very accepting, and it was great.
So we started rowing in 2006. The boats were on the east side, moored out, and John Pinero and John Branco would get in John's boat, little boat in Pinero, come around to pick us up and get the boat. It's 5:30 in the morning.
Yes.
We're loading in the boat. And yeah, I don't think he loved getting up that early in the morning, but they worked with us. He worked with us for that whole year and taught us how to row.
And how to sing.
How to sing. He taught us the traditions and
Yeah,
what it was all about.
Great.
And I think there were maybe 6 of us from the organization. And by the end of that summer, we probably had maybe 10 or 12 women that were rowing regularly, not necessarily from the organization. Then the year after, 2007, when the third regatta was here in the United States, we were allowed to, or we were invited to and encouraged to put together a demonstration team. So we filled 3 whaleboats with women, and we had a race separate from the international regatta, separate to the point where we didn't wear red shirts. This was our first demonstration row.
Demonstration team shirt.
Team shirt.
So 2007 is a significant milestone for the organization.
Definitely a significant.
The women, 18 women?
18 women.
Participated in a demonstration to row. Did they sail as well or just row?
No sailing at that time.
So they demonstrated row in the regatta, had a purple shirt. So for those who don't know, our team shirts are red. And then off we went from there. Yeah. That's amazing. So how was it like that very first regatta? What do you remember what feelings did you have participating in that? That's
it was
a huge occasion.
It was just so exciting to have so many, to share the culture. Because so many, God, we had Norwegians, we had Polish people, we had all kinds of nationalities.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Visiting and participating.
Of Americans.
That went out to watch the regatta.
No, that were in the women's group.
Really?
Our women's group were not, they were Americans,
Yes,
but they were
all
of,
different
not
cultures.
of Portuguese descent.
That's a quite
particularly.
unique bonding
a blend.
experience. Yes. So how was it for Mom to see all of this happening?
Oh, I was thrilled to death because, of course, I was in good shape in those days. And, of course, I went to see that. I still remember them in the wheelboat. And 3 men were the coxswain. That's just to show you what good sports those guys were. They even were coxswains for the women.
Right. We've come a long way since
We
then,
certainly
right?
have.
So we were
Yeah.
just in the regatta in Fayal
Yeah.
and Pico, and I'm a member of the women's row team.
Mm-hmm.
It's all women on the boat now, no
All
men.
Wow.
The year after, in 2008, the 4th regatta, we went to the Azores with a team of women, and we had the time of our life. We were rowing. Our average age was about 50. Their average age, Fayal and Pico, were probably 20, 25.
That's okay.
The women
makes a
from
difference.
the women from Pico had been rowing and sailing in their villages on their island. The women from Fayal had not rowed or sailed. So USA and Fayal, it was a new thing for us.
Excellent. So this was the very first time both had participating
Yep.
teams.
Yep.
And when did Pico? Do you know when they were?
I don't
jumped back
know
on?
that. I don't know when they began rowing and sailing.
Couldn't have been that much longer
No.
afterwards.
And then we started sailing. 2009. We learned. John, thank you, John Pinero. Thank you, John Branco. Thank you, Fernando Viveras, Tom Alves, Victor Pinero taught us how to sail, and John Pinero was our skipper. Fernando was on the jib, and the 2010 regatta here in the U.S. We sailed with Pico, Fayal, and USA sailed. But we were allowed because Pico didn't want this. They wanted no men. But Fayal and USA, we needed a skipper and a jib person. So John Pinero and Fernando were on our boat. We had a wonderful time.
And that's
excellent.
that's the first time that I saw a drone with a camera.
No, that was not.
Taking
was
those
it? I think
pictures.
it was the one after that.
You think it was the one?
Yeah, it was after that. Yep. Mhm.
Oh.
But you remember something cool.
Yes.
I've never seen it since. Yeah, that was very exciting. But the men were wonderful. And the women who didn't row and didn't sail, like me, were very good too, because we were their support system. And all of those people, every time there was a regatta, were always housed in homes, not in motels or hotels.
But in the homes.
And that way there you learn about the culture. And it's made a good blending. I've learned a lot. And I'm sure that all the other people in the organization have learned a lot. And
How many times have you hosted families?
I have never
participants?
hosted because by then I had sold my home. My husband had passed away, and I sold my home.
I hosted every
You've
single
hosted
time.
Every
I've always
Okay.
hosted. I've made lifelong friends.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And she doesn't speak Portuguese.
So that's a fun exchange.
Yes.
Is most of the folks from the Azores speak mostly Portuguese, but a
some
little bit
English.
of English.
I have yes.
But
I
you
have a woman that
too.
stayed with me. Well, she stayed with me many times, but in the beginning, Marcia Dutra, she really struggled with English. Now she is an excellent English speaker.
Didn't she even write a book? Was she the one?
They both written books, yeah.
And it was translated into English.
Yep.
Or did she write it in English?
I can't
I don't remember. But a lot of friendships have been made. This has been very good for our city.
As I'm sure you know, having
Yes, for sure.
had the experience of going to the Azores, how many close friends you
New friends.
New
It's
friends.
amazing. It's a really unique and different opportunity, but so accessible to members of the community around here.
And just to wrap that up, in 2011, regatta number 5, I believe, 2010, regatta number 5, we rowed and sailed in the Azores.
So there you have it, participating in both events.
Yep. And after that, it was time for me to engage lots of new folks to take over and lots of new women to row and sail. And that's an important part of our organization, is that we introduce new people to join. And
what started with just a few people now is a very large organization and so well done. I'm amazed and very pleased with what you young folks have done with this organization. You've computerized. You've done so many things that I would never have thought of in the beginning. Good job.
Thank you so much, but not to, we can't discount anything that you both did in the beginning, because it is so important to the history of this organization and to where it's going in the future. Without you two and many others, we wouldn't be where we are today. And boats wouldn't be in the water, and we wouldn't have a great cultural exchange with the Azorean whaleboat rowers and sailors as well. So to wrap up things, what's your favorite memory that you've had with the organization? Just a fun thing you can recall.
I would say the first time that we went over as a team of women, I had been a couple times before, once with Mom and once with as an observer, but to actually be a part of it and bring people that had never been to the Azores and had never been a part of anything like this. It was just so wonderful.
Excellent. And do you have anything to share as we wrap up?
I think my moment was the trip that the Whaler Museum sponsored, that Mary Vermette was our guide for, because one of the islands that we went to, even though they were not a whaling background island, was the island that my folks are from, Terceira. And it was a thrill to think that my mother and father walked on those streets. That was something I'll never forget.
I would imagine you would never forget something like that. What great stories. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Irene and Louise. This has been a pleasure. I've loved learning all about the history of women coming through in this organization. I look forward to learning more from you both as we exit the studio. And thanks everyone for listening to Sound Orders with Azorean Maritime Heritage Society. If you'd like to learn more, please go to our website and join our organization today. Obrigada e até logo.